Well, welcome to the Space Turtle Show finale.
Woo! Yay!
Yeah!
Look how enthusiastic he is.
I'm so enthusiastic, but also I'm kind of sick. So if I seem a little out of it, it's because I'm a little out of it. And yeah, I'm just here with my blankie and sipping
Nice,
cup.
nice. Well, I think it will be an exciting show nonetheless because we're gonna go and rank all 10 of our episodes. Actually, would you even think about ranking them maybe on the hand about like our performance on those episodes? That would be kind of cool too.
I'm sure, yeah, I'd like, I wouldn't mind talking about it.
Yeah, but what we were planning on doing was just ranking the movies that we had watched in those 10 episodes, and give you guys like a little rundown on which ones we like the best overall. Because we do have a lot of positive and sometimes negative things to say in those reviews, and it can kind of get a little bit difficult to know which ones we actually really liked and which one we actually didn't really like, or even sometimes in the middle to which ones are pulling ahead of each other. So I think this will be a great episode to explore that kind and see where we differ.
Yeah, and I think it's important to mention that this is a subjective list. This isn't what we found to be objectively the technically best movies. This is just how these movies personally impacted us and our kind of interpretation and our subjective opinions on them.
Yes, that is important to note because mine are definitely not the most beautiful films in the top, maybe, in my opinion. But
No,
honestly, I think Joey's probably more. I'm afraid
You
of
think mine are more objective?
No, less objective.
Oh.
Because you keep laughing at it. Because you keep Generally, I can trust you a little bit more to be a little bit more objective when we watched a film, but then you're just, you've been memeing on your list too much. I have no trust anymore.
No, it's just,
I'm
it's
scared.
Just
What
one,
am I gonna
it's
hear?
just one like little thing. You're gonna be like, wow, that one's really low. I'm kind of okay, but do you wanna go first on yours?
For sure. I think I don't know. Mine are kind of the last two are a little bit of a contentious two, and so I don't know if you want me to just tell them both, or you want me to just explain when we get to the second one.
Well, if they're paired like that, you can just go 10 and 9. Yeah.
Okay. So I guess my 10th is gonna be THX. I don't know if that's gonna be a surprise or not, but I'm not...
Maybe. Maybe.
And ninth is gonna be O Sophia in London. And to be honest, if it was objective, O Sophia would definitely not be beating THX. But I felt that there is a certain experience that we don't usually get to experience with films that we watch for the show, and the fact that O Sophia in London was able to be watched with a group of people, especially it being, not the most polished movie ever, getting to watch that with a large group of people or larger group of people that your energies can like bounce off of kind of boosted it up for me in the subjective sense of it, because I did end up enjoying it a lot more than I ended up enjoying THX, because it was just you and me, and although the movie's pretty mid, like I didn't hate it or anything like that, it was just like almost a little boring while I was watching it. And O Sophia is definitely not technically great, but it was really fun to watch because we all watched it together, so.
Yeah, I would say I have THX at number 9.
Oh, okay.
So I'm pretty much there with you. It's pretty low down for me as far as like, I think boring's a good word. I think that's an appropriate word in a lot of ways. It's like there's there's a lot of great things and it was very ambitious, so I don't want to say I didn't like THX.
Yeah.
Actually, other than my number 10, which I would say I didn't like, my 9 and up, I'd give a thumbs up to. Like, even though THX is not my favorite movie, it's still got a lot that it brings to the table. Good ideas. I think that was the big thing we talked about when we were doing the show. It's like it's got a lot of good ideas, but it doesn't have like the execution that we were looking for, and
Yeah.
we were just talking how like George Lucas is a young director in this, and he kind of figures it out more how to make a more tight story as he goes on. So pretty much I echo everything you say about it. But oh yeah, you were gonna say something.
Were you finished?
Yes, I was.
I think it was so unique, but it didn't have as much of character in it as I wanted, and it reminded me of like a spin-off show that you're not really interested in, but you still watch it. It's as if like the world is so interesting that if it had like a really good story to open us up to the world and get us invested in understanding everything that's going on, and then this was maybe like a 4 episode miniseries or something like that maybe you don't care too much about the character, but you're starting to learn more about the world that you liked from the original. But because it's the original, it's like, yeah, it kind of reminds me a little bit of like Marvel TV shows. And I just wanted to point out the fact that like it being like up there should be respected, and we do, I think, respect it a lot. But yeah, it just seemed like we didn't have like an Infinity War arc, and then now we're watching WandaVision like by itself, and that's like the first thing that came out
we just got WandaVision.
Yeah, that's the only thing you got. Yeah, and we would definitely feel a lot less enthusiastic about it without the world that had already been built, you know?
And talking about like our performance, like as far as the show, like I think it was appropriate to spend half the time talking about Blade Runner instead.
Yeah.
Because we definitely like that movie more, and that movie's better. I'm sorry, but
Yeah.
it's more fun to talk about, and we didn't have like too much to say because the movie was kind of boring.
Yeah.
But
so, what ended up being your number 10?
my number 10 though is a film that was just a little bit long, and that would be Tango.
Honestly, expected that one. Is that the one that you were thinking was going to trip me up, or no?
No.
Okay.
No.
I expected that one.
I feel like that was pretty clear in the episode. My opinions on it. I think it's got a lot of great shots and a lot of good direction. I'm a little more cool about the whole cat thing. Not a lot more cool though.
Yeah.
Just thought that was in poor taste.
Yeah.
But putting that on the side, you know, it's got good shots and good direction, but I feel like it didn't delve into the world of the characters as much as I would have wanted to for a film that had so much time to do so.
Yeah.
And it didn't. It felt like, hilariously enough, even if the film was like 4 or 5 hours, it might have been
still
better.
Oh.
Well, sure, it could have been long, but even the style that they were going for was admirable. I appreciated it, but it going on for so long like that, clearly that's going to become draining for the audience.
For sure.
So subjectively, maybe I just didn't have the brain power to cut it. To be honest, like I just didn't have the focus to handle something like that.
For the record, I brought it up as a joke. The joke's like, we're doing it. So.
I'm very glad we watched it because I think it's hilarious that we got to watch a 7-hour movie, and I'm very proud that we got to watch a movie that was that long and kind of see what that even looks like or feels like. But at the end of the day, it's my least favorite that we did.
Sounds good. I can see that from here. And I think then moving on, I feel like in these, at least the first like 4 or 5, or like the lower half of it, it is kind of like contentious between a couple. And so I'm probably gonna do 8 and 7 at the same time too.
Oh, okay. All right.
Okay, so I feel like this might be a little bit harsh to say, and I do feel like it's kind of wrong objectively, even somewhat subjectively, but I'm going to explain a little bit further. My 8th choice is going to be Tumbad.
Oh, okay.
Uh-huh.
I think that's my number 8 as well.
Oh, really? Interesting. Yeah. Okay. And then 7 is going to be Santan Tango. And I feel like that's the case because of a set of expectation that I had, which, I mean, of course, I try not to bring any, if like, or the minimal expectation when going into a film, but I can't help from thinking while the movie is going on. And so I may have been guilty of overhyping Tumbad to a degree, and I think that that severely lessened my enjoyment of the film overall. I really loved the set design and like the way that they shot it so that it's always raining, and the acting I thought was great. But there was this sense of Bollywood's clear-cut story that I was hoping would be subverted in Tumbad, and it kind of just played into this theme of greed is bad, and I just hope that there was a little bit more to it, with everything else being as top-notch as it was. And so, in the other hand, Santa and Tango was just so little that was going on that it gave my brain so much time to just make absurd connections and just like overthink everything and attribute like deeper meaning to everything going on, especially because there wasn't like this super clear theme. It definitely was narrative, which was unexpected because who expected a 7-hour movie to be like narratively driven?
Yeah.
But there was a lot of open-endedness for you to put interpretations and get different themes from the movie. And I think because it was 7 hours, that also gave me just so much time in the middle just to marinate on like everything that was going on. Because you watch them dance for like 20 minutes and you're like, okay, I'm not gonna like be focusing on who's doing what for like the majority of the time now. I'm just gonna think about like why dancing, why in this moment, and why it goes on for so long, like what those things connect to each other. And I think the highlights in Santan Tango was better thematically or like narratively than in Tumbad. I think obviously like the direction and at least the color palette and that kind of stuff is better in Tumbad. But like I can't get over the beration of the officer to those two people. I forget their names, but
Yeah.
I just love that scene so much that like just that one could have put it above Tumbad for me, just because there's a lot going on, I guess.
Yeah, and I think we talked about in the episode like how faithful it was to creating the feel of a book, like
Yeah.
literature in film, the way it just holds on things and allows you to create your own details of every moment.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was the strongest thing that I took from Santa Tango in general. So I definitely appreciate that. And, you know, like I said, I've got Tumbad in the same spot. I've got it in the number 8 spot. Mm-hmm. And I really enjoyed Tumbad. I thought it was very good. I thought it did well with the horror. It was scarier than I expected. It, like you said, the design of the creature, very good. The set design, kind of when they're going into the heart.
Yeah, and it pulls out to a shot where everything's like dark, and it's just like, yeah, that's pretty good.
Oh yeah, really atmospheric and great. There are some things, like you said, though, where I just felt like it just pulled me back out of it. Like when they did the songs, I was like, I feel like you just did those because you felt like you had to, you know? And it didn't feel like they had to. Stuff like that, the story, everything in the town, certain social dynamics that I felt like were normalized that probably shouldn't be normalized, like sexism as far as that goes, and all that. But it wasn't like the worst thing in the world, but I still really enjoyed the movie, and I have it at my number 8.
Mm-hmm.
My number 7, this is the fun one.
Oh, okay.
The Favorite.
Damn, okay, that is surprising. Wait, what? Dang,
The
okay.
Favorite.
Okay. Did you feel like it got a little bit worse when we watched it for the podcast, or did you feel like we just watched movies that surpassed it quite often.
It's just that I don't think about this movie very much. This movie gave me I don't have it doesn't have a very big impact in my head when I think about stuff.
Uh-huh.
Other than Olivia Colman, who I thought was absolutely brilliant. I think she was really special in this film, and I love Yorgos Lanthimos, but looking at mostly the killing of the sacred deer, I just think that movie is much better.
Oh, I agree.
And that kind of pins me down. And on a subjective level, I just don't like British monarchies. I don't like when they're in movies. I just don't. I find it very difficult to give a shit.
Yeah.
So for those couple reasons, I thought this movie was very good, but not incredibly impactful for me or my film journey. And so it's at number 7 for me.
Interesting.
I'm sure you will talk about it at length because you love this movie.
Yeah, I mean, spoilers, but it's pretty up there for me. But I can agree with all you're saying, with everything that you're saying. I'll obviously get into it more later, but I think it was a little bit more sticking in my mind because of the interesting qualities of a story like that. But I think moving on from 6 all the way up from here, it's going to be a lot more interesting because I feel like we might actually be a little bit of mixed on this. My number 6 is going to be Life of Crime.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, like I said before, it's from here on out, it's almost just not because I find any big flaws in these films. It just becomes like, okay, well, what are the other films doing that this one is not? And I think that Life of Crime has like this, I guess it's really bad to say, but it has this documentary quality. Because it's a documentary. It's super interesting because if you compare it to like Santantango, it's like Santantango is more boring and more mundane, but it almost feels like purposeful. Like when you read a book, I don't know, maybe this is actually really bad to say, but I'm gonna keep going. When you're reading a book, even if something really boring is happening in the book, the writer puts it there for a reason, and when you're looking at life and the documentation of life, it's a lot harder to pull that meaning, and so the reason why it's at number 6 as opposed to above is that there are a lot of recordings of mundane moments in these drug addicts' lives. And although they serve to paint a more cohesive picture of who they are, I don't really remember what happens at all to like any of them, except for like the big moments, And so instead of racking my brain for like 7 hours trying to find out like why this mundane moment is happening because it's purposeful in some way, watching someone just record another person and kind of like putting pieces together that I guess have the purpose of fleshing out that person, but not so much more than that, just to like create a real depiction of drug addiction, was a little bit less affecting to my like attention, I guess. Obviously the high moments were great. I honestly love the way that they brought the humanity to drug addicts, the jokiness to it, and then they would just slap you in the face with like the reality of what happens to these people in like one like what's it called, like one cut, especially speaking of like the main dude, and everything that happens to him. But yeah, I think that's always been my kind of apprehension with documentaries, is because it's just so real that I don't really feel that there's much grandiose meaning in life most of the time, and so watching it is a little bit less engaging, in my opinion.
Well, we talked about this a lot in
Yeah.
the original episode. So I will just say that I disagree with you on a lot of that as
Yeah.
far as the documentary filmmaking goes. But I do have a similar level of appreciation for this film. I had it at number 5
Mhm.
for me. So I might as well just give my thoughts real quick
sure,
because it's pretty close to yours. I thought it was. I loved how they dealt with the passage of time, how the director's perspective on the three addicts and the story that they told. I felt was very impactful, and he was able to tell such uh, a humane story
Mhm.
and have such an empathy for these people. And it was nice to see his interaction with them as the film was going on because they were constantly talking with each other, and he was his own character in the film as well.
Yeah.
And moments like that, I really loved. It's one of my favorite documentaries I've seen, although I haven't seen enough. But yeah, it's hard for me to say a lot of things I don't like about the film. It's just I had 4 others that I liked a little bit more.
Yeah.
It's not really a knock. I think my top 5 is very solid as far as my personal enjoyment. I think from 5 up, I loved these films, and they really had a big impact on me. So that is my number 5.
All right, what was your number 6 then?
My number 6 is O Sophia in London.
Damn. What was 7, 8, 9?
It was
Santa Tango.
Seta Tango, THX, Tumbad, and The Favorite.
Damn. Beat out some stiff competition with this O Sophia in London, man.
And I would like to make the argument that it is objectively a great film. I want to make
All right,
that real
all right.
quick. And
I'm ready to hear about it.
I would say its technical prowess being what it is, clearly not quality, but in effect, it ended up being an enhancement for the film. And I think as far as the artistic quality goes, certain things that they did, like interacting with real people as the character, fucking brilliant. That's something in comedy I've never seen before. I think it's much smarter than people would like to give it credit for. We talk about like certain social issues being kind of cringeworthy at times,
Yeah.
but the more I think about it, and the more I think about it from like an intersectional kind of lens, the message of the film is like it's looking at the Western world and being like, you're not that much better, and I think that's an important thing to mention because coming from a white person from the West, it's like, yeah, we've done a lot of things to fuck up these kind of other nations and areas, and it's important to notice that, like, it's important for films to like call us out on that, and even when parts of the film are socially unacceptable, and I think in a lot of ways objectively wrong. I think the perspective they took was still endearing, and not to mention absolutely hilarious. So for reasons like that, and certain setups with the comedy, certain musical ideas, and certain story beats and decisions that I did not expect, even if they do seem crazy. It had a huge impact on me, and I absolutely loved it.
Okay, so being faced with that, surprisingly, I don't disagree with a lot of what you said. But I feel like the differences kind of lie in what I attribute towards entertainment and what you attribute towards maybe more artistically, I guess. It was, for me, watching him go out into the real world and talk to real people and getting like ear raped by like the sound was hilarious and super fun to watch in a group. But when I sit down and be like, this is actually maybe an artistic choice. I don't know about that, man.
I didn't say choice.
Artistic.
I never said choice. I just thought it was very artistically pleasing.
Okay, yeah, but yeah, I think that's the general disagreement. Is I can totally see where everything you're saying, but for me, it was just more of entertainment, and it didn't really stick as much in my mind. But I'm glad it did for you. So
yeah. All right. Well, you've got number 5 now, right?
Oh man. Oh yeah. What is my number 5? Okay. Okay. These are getting into the good ones. My number 5 is gonna be Columbus.
Ooh. All right.
I think that it is probably the near perfect film of our list, and I think that that's what I attributed number 5 to. Because that
you think it's the most perfect film out of all of these?
No, not like in terms of objectively. I think in terms of like subjectively.
Oh, okay.
I think it's the most perfect because it does what it does with what it has in the best way possible. And using the setting of Columbus and the characters that were written and the conversations that went on and the conflict and the narrative, I think the director Konogawa, or I forgot his name obviously, but he did as great of a job as he could have with the constraints of, budget or themes that he was trying to go for. Like, he didn't reach for this super meta or deep theme, but it was still impactful. It was still done in like a graceful way, and everything like that. And that's why I had it as 5th, because although the movies that are gonna come up later on my list are a little bit more ambitious, I think this is like almost a perfect film. I forgot, I think it was his first film, right?
I think so.
Yeah, I think it was borderline one of the most respectable debut films, because you're not gonna have this huge budget to work with, and you almost don't want to start off trying to comment on deep philosophical humanity issues that are ambiguous to everybody, I guess. And the way that he told an emotional story with the themes and it being his first film, I thought that was what made it subjectively the most perfect one.
Well, I don't know what you mean by subjectively the most perfect one.
Okay.
And I do disagree with you about some things, as in it. I thought it was a very deep and rich story. Although I think at the end of the day we have a very similar opinion in that this movie is very, very good.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to shout out Rory Culkin, my favorite Culkin as of that movie.
Really? Not from Succession?
No, I'm just kidding. Actually, he's still my third favorite. But I think
Who's even the second?
Dude, Macaulay Culkin is number 1, no question.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense.
And then Kieran Culkin, from Succession.
Yeah.
I mean, you're so good. But Rory Culkin needs more work. He needs more work, guys. I can't believe he isn't in more stuff, because he was so good. And, I think he has an argument to be my favorite if he were in more stuff.
That is true. That is true.
I don't want to just say he's the worst acting Culkin, because he killed it in this movie. Yeah. And that's it. That's all I'm just it's very beautiful, and it's a great love letter to the architecture of the city. Yeah. And I think it had a lot of life in the film, and it had a lot of soul, and the relationship between John Cho the actress that I forgot the name of, but she was in After Yang. She was very good in Columbus as well. Absolutely amazing. And I think their relationship as the heartbeat for a film resonated a lot with me. And I had it at number 4, so that was my next pick anyway.
All right, interesting.
So, yeah, I love this film, and it did a lot for me.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, I mean, I feel like should I try and explain it a little bit more, or do we want to just move on? So,
I think
what's subjectively perfect.
Well, I think people might understand. Maybe I just don't understand. So,
well, if I can clarify in the comments, if you guys are confused, I'll have a lot more time to think about it. Alrighty. Well, moving on to number. What am I on? Number 4? My number 4?
Yeah.
Okay. It's going to be Yi. 1 and 2. Yeah. That's going to be my number 4. I think we discussed this because it's one of our most recent episodes. I feel like a lot of what I felt was said in that episode. I don't think that there was a lot that I wasn't able to put into words at that moment after watching that movie. And so if you guys want a lot of explanation on what I feel, you should go check out that episode. Because generally the ones that are more recent, it's going to be a little bit harder for me to like explain again in this episode. But I can expand a lot more on like really episodes that were a while ago, you know. But to paraphrase, I guess, there was a lot of beautiful things in the movie, but there was also a little bit of almost emulating, again, pulling back from Life of Crime and Santa and Tango. There was a little bit of an exploration into the mundane, into the world or interpersonal relationships that perhaps pulled me out of the main characters in a few moments, like countable on my fingers. And that is the difference between like these top movies that we've picked. So again, you know, major ones like, why did that dude kill that random other dude? Like, and then just like the animation that they played on the news afterwards. I actually really love that choice though. That was hilarious. But the point is like, I think I'm like a very dramatic person and a very like romantic person. And so sometimes whenever we're pushing like really theme heavy stuff, sometimes just by making a joke here or there, that a little bit pulls me out of it. Not that I hate it every time it happens or even dislike it, but I just kind of like to just get hammered in with like sadness like 24/7, you know, if that's what you're going for. And you know, some of those jokey moments, or at least the more abrasive ones, you know, I loved that when he dropped the water balloon. Like that did not negatively affect the film at all. Even if it is like a more somber film, that is a great addition. But you know, there are other aspects that kind of pulled me out of it, and I think that that's why it landed into my number 4.
Yeah, I mean, I love this film as well, and I think that is a bit of a difference between you and I as far as our subjective opinion, because I find it difficult to take things seriously at all, and I actually find humor to be very important. It's an important part of films to me, because I don't think a single bad thing has ever happened to me that I don't remember like something funny about it. I can't process things without humor. So I like it when films spoon feed me that.
No, I feel like, yeah, I definitely am going to come back to that statement as we move on, because I feel like humor is extremely important to me too. It just is in like a slightly different realm than your preference of humor in film. And that's I think gonna come up in the next couple picks. But what's your next one?
Well, I guess I've got number 3 now, because I had number 4 already as Columbus. My number 3 is Come and See. The
good movie.
Anti-war film, brilliant, from 1984, I think, maybe. But anyway, it's a very powerful it's one of those films that's got one message, and it will hammer that shit down until
Hey.
you cry. And
Hey.
I appreciate films with such a direct idea that stand by it and do everything they can to hit you with it from every different angle. And we talk about this film a lot, and I'm always split between this film and number two, and I think this film is actually an objectively better film than my number two, but um, it has everything to perfection. We're talking the music, the direction is way ahead of its time, like we were saying. The performances from the child actors are absolutely ridiculous. Um, the set design, the story and writing, just everything. It was an immaculate, beautiful film, and terrible to watch in all the most satisfying ways.
Mm-hmm. And I totally agree. That brings up my like second and third too. It was really between this movie, and I'm gonna just go ahead and say the second one, or second or third one, is that's gonna be the favorite because we've mentioned it before. And I think that weirdly enough, I have to put the favorite above it. But I loved Come and See so much. Like,
So we both have it at three.
yeah. And I think that honestly, that's probably the most emotional I had gotten in any of our episodes was talking about Come and See. And I think that the way that they portrayed this like innocence that is destroyed in war, that was by far my favorite part. Because I was actually honestly expecting more of like a almost like a Saving Private Ryan kind of thing. Like these people are like, I guess I kind of knew he was a kid, but I thought it would focus more on like the atrocities of war. And obviously it had a ton of that in spades, but it had the beginning periods that showcased his innocence, his playfulness, digging in the sand, trying to find a gun, falling in love or infatuation to a degree, like just in the beginning, like 30-45 minutes, right, like as he was kind of joining but not fully experiencing everything like that. I think those choices and almost like the surrealism of that early portion of the film elevated it. I would say above any war film that I've seen so far. But that's the statement. I won't swear by it, but that's how I'm feeling right now.
I think it's safe to say, with my top three films, anyway, and this movie being third, that this film is legitimately a masterpiece.
Mhm.
Like this film, it is pure brilliance, and it is like it's like a classic of literature. It's
Yeah, it was-
absolutely meant to be studied.
Mhm, for sure. And I think that moves on to my second choice was the favorite. And I think that going back to our humor discussion, this is where I want to bring in. I think that mundane life humor is a little bit less interesting to me than almost satire, and like satire that is almost real, or if not real, like the debate between if it's real or not is more of like my favorite type of humor in film. With the favorite, it is hilarious and it is wild to say the least. And yet I never felt myself being like, this could never have happened. Like, you have like a monarch who just has like unlimited power. Like, of course they're gonna be like a baby, Is this exactly how she acted? Probably not. But like, who can say it's not very close? And the fact that I wouldn't even bring up that the Yorgos Lanthimos did or did not read any history to develop his characters. I would honestly believe it either way. You know, if he had said, no, I didn't read anything, I just wrote this, I'd be like, that makes sense. And if he said, like, I studied it a lot and this is why I wrote it, I would be like, that makes a lot of sense too. And I think that the humor that encapsulates the whole film is more of the type of humor that I tend to prefer. It makes fun of life itself, and then you can correct me if I'm wrong, but in like a more serious film like Yi, the humor that's injected in that is almost like a part of life, or like, I wouldn't even say distraction, but like a coping of life, I guess.
Yeah.
Rather than making fun of life itself, or making fun of like people in life itself, you know?
Yeah, no, I want to state, like, as far as even, like, I like The Favorite. I definitely like The Favorite. I really like it. But I want to say that Yorgos Lanthimos, whether you like his films or not, he is one of one as a director.
Yes.
You know, there's no one quite like him making films right now, and he's so exciting to watch when you're talking about, you know, unique filmmakers. He's got to be near the top of your list. Like, I'm sure we're both like salivating to watch his next film.
Yes.
You know what I mean? It's like he's very special, and I love a lot about The Favorite. So I definitely appreciate what you're saying with that film.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, speaking of Yi, because we might as well continue this conversation, that is my number 2.
Okay.
And I want to go back to what I was saying before, claiming that Come and See, I feel like, is an objectively better film than Yi as far as the execution and storytelling and that and whatnot, because I know when we were doing our episode on Yi, there's a couple. We were able to mention a number of flaws with the film that we had, and I still stick by those flaws. But I would say that for me, subjectively, there were more things from the film that impacted me, or that I remember and I use in my day-to-day life, that go above Come and See as well.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of more of a home run or strikeout kind of film.
I get that.
Even though their strikeouts are like minor details, but we're talking like very small changes, because both of these films are brilliant in my opinion. But I just like you were saying, I think you made a good point. The mundane kind of everyday life kind of humor is absolutely my favorite humor, and it's the kind of humor I identify with the most. And there are certain things they did with the film, such as the child actor and everything to do with him, I just can't get out of my head, because I feel like it was so brilliant.
Brilliant.
The main character I felt like was great. And there's just certain characters that I find to be very, very memorable, that I bring with me in my day-to-day life, like a character that we didn't talk about enough on the podcast,
Yes.
the business partner that he was trying to make a deal with. What a brilliant... I can't think of other words to describe this, you know? It just is brilliant. There's not much else to say about it. He's a very endearing, very, very wise character.
Yeah.
And I think about him a lot too. I love the story. I love the setup.
Mm-hmm.
And I love kind of the complexities of interpersonal life that they delve into. So I'm taking a lot from this film, and it's my number 2.
For real. I mean, if I had to say anything about this movie, even in my rankings, which is 4 is not even that bad, but like I think that out of everything, this movie, I feel like I like it more and more the more we talk about it. And I think that maybe might change my listings in like 6 months or something like that. But I just wanted to point that out because it is that good. Because every single time we talk about it, I just feel like there's something more beautiful about the way that everything intertwined with each other. And although there are other films that I placed above it, I think that that is an admirable quality for any movie to have, and it being this movie is well deserved, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, it is weird that he just killed the guy. I mean, I gotta admit, like, I don't. That was a bit of a curveball. I don't know why he did that, but like, that, you know, I can understand why it would be like knocked down a little bit because of that. It's just that the things that stick with me a lot.
I can totally agree. Well, I think that brings up a process of elimination, man. I guess we've hit the same one, yeah.
I had a feeling we'd have the same number one.
I was pretty sure from my point of view, but I'm actually I wouldn't say completely surprised, but I could have seen it going a couple different ways with you. So maybe you want to open up with something.
Sure. What can I say? It is, as far as art, direction, and atmosphere and style, I've never seen a better film, bar none. You know, yes. Not just for the kind of movie it is, but for any film ever created. What they were able to do with stop motion, wall art, or paper mache, or whatever art style they were using. Yeah. And even the changes between it was nothing short of genius. It's never going to be topped as far as the kind of impact it had on me at the time. Even if something comes out that I think is actually better, I'm always going to remember what it did to me and how it changed my perspective on film.
Mm-hmm. Man, I can totally agree with that. I think even beyond the flashiness of it, it always makes me come back and think of the other qualities that are so great in this film. Like, I always go back to the sound editing and the way that I remember editing, like just cutting out some stuff whenever we did this audio version, and just kind of like taking out our ums or our repetitions, and that would take hours and it would be so mentally grinding.
Yeah.
And yet just imagine every single frame you have to add in like a sound of tape or like a sound of like a paintbrush on the wall, or like a ball bouncing, or even not bouncing, just moving like a frame, you know? And there's just so much that was going on in that film that let's just say that it was not surprising whatsoever that it was a traveling exhibition of like an art exhibition, and they kind of just shot it as people were going to an art museum to watch it change little by little every day. And over the course of, I can't remember exactly, but years, it finally became this an hour and 30-minute film. And I think that it marries my other tops, and the things that I kind of put one above the other for. I think that Wolf House does every single one of them to its peak perfection. For example, with The Favorite, I felt that it was like a joke on life, whether that be accurate to life or not. And I think that the use of the wolf storyline, the fairy tale, that the Wolf House uses to tell this super dark story is just a great comment on how a fundamentally simple and linear story, fairy tale almost, can be used intelligently to comment on life, cults, manipulation, gaslighting, like all that kind of stuff. And moving on to like Come and See, the seriousness of it, I felt like there were definite like happier moments in the Wolf House, but it stuck to its tone, and it was saturated in that tone. And even when there's moments where they celebrate a birthday, or they you know, I don't know. Was there Christmas or something in there? Yeah, something like that. You know, celebrations and that kind of stuff. It still was just so saturated in that tone that the jokes or happier moments almost compete with the sad moments, and that's kind of where like come and see the comparison with come and see comes in, because in the beginning it's like really more fantastical before all like the stuff goes in, but it never took me out of the film like it did sometimes in Yi Yi, you know. So all of these things put together, masterpiece. Cannot I immediately like there's no other film that would have been my number one. It was probably the only big um, solid choice that I made as soon as we decided to do a ranking. Is like I don't know. I guess when we decided to do a ranking, it was before we finished all our films, but
Yeah.
it was definitely like, okay, can something knock down Wolf House? You know, and obviously no, but it was like the standard, you know.
Yeah, I think some films got close, but just going what? Just going back to what you were saying about how it was kind of like an art museum and an art project, like just going back to that idea of, you know, take away the story, and I'm gonna get back to the story, but if you take it away and you view it solely as a piece of art from an abstract point of view, it is it hits me in a way that most films do not, because I can look at it as if I'm in an art museum, right? And I'm kind of interpreting the visual style and the spacing and the color scheme in ways that I only see from genuine professional artists, like painters and all of that.
Yeah.
And so, from that kind of visual kind of point of view, it does something that no other film I have ever seen has done, even other stop motion or animated films. Now, if we introduce the story, because the art is so brilliant, it is almost ridiculous to look at the story and think, well, you know, the story might be a little bit surface level or shallow because they're so focused on the art. But that is not true at all.
Yeah.
The story has layers upon layers of deeper meaning and metaphors, and everything has a second idea or function in every word that someone says. It feels like a story that requires a lot of knowledge to pick up everything, right? You have to know everything about the original fairy tale. You have to know about the German and Nazi presence in Chile to understand the story from the second level of that interpretation. You have to know about the language differences and the dialect differences to pick up kind of the symbolic meaning behind what language is used when, and all sorts of things that just come to an addition that makes this film even more rich and exciting than I could have possibly imagined. And not to mention, I cannot stress this enough. This movie, if you watch this high, it will blow your fucking mind, man.
Bro,
like,
best Thai movie, man.
Best Thai movie ever. I mean, like, some people can get paranoid when you're high, then I would say don't do that.
Yeah.
Don't, because you'll get paranoid pretty easily. But for someone like me who appreciates getting the shit scared out of me, this is like the best Thai movie I've ever seen in my life.
For real.
And I've seen it a couple times, so I'm not just saying it's my number one because I got high during it, because it's got so much else to offer as well.
Yeah, and I think coming off of that, I wanted to say that this movie is like the epitome of like a masterclass on every single portion of filmmaking. And I think that is so important to be able to revisit, because there are a couple impactful films in my list, and I think in general that really excel in one area, and maybe the other ones aren't like bad in any sense. Like they kind of hold the peak portion up a little higher. And I think for the Wolf House, I think this brings into a little bit of a discussion. I guess we won't go really into depth on rankings or anything like that, but I felt like most likely it was probably because of our first episode for this season. I felt like the Wolf House discussion, at least from my end, was my most disappointing thing from our season because obviously we just got into it and I felt like I wasn't able to word things as well as I am now. And I guess I wanted to reiterate a couple things from that episode that maybe needs a little bit more clarification. The one is I loved the fact of the exploration on cults, on brainwashing, and the symbolic, how it attributes it symbolically to a wolf and the three piggies and the houses, you know, blowing down those houses. And I guess like he huffs and he puffs and he blows the house down. It took it in a very slow manner, and it was almost like metaphorically, this wolf was just blowing like one piece of hay out at one time, or like one piece of wood, or like one piece of brick at one time. Mm-hmm. And I think that so perfectly emulates getting brainwashed by a cult, you know, or just any person that tries to manipulate your brain. You know, they knock one little piece at a time, and eventually everything falls down. You know, and that type of complex deep dive into how the wolf always just shows up just a little bit, especially during the distressing moments of Maria's life, and just like knocks her confidence down just a little bit, scares her a little bit about how the world is. It makes a person want to find comfort.
Well, back on audio.
Clap time.
Well, we don't need to.
Oh, true. Yeah, I always forget.
We're fine.
And yeah, I guess what I was trying to say is, I feel like, and I never rewatched the episodes because I'm really bad at watching our episodes, so I don't want to hear my own voice. But I remember being very indecisive or inarticulate on why I felt that it had a thematic parallel towards parenting. And I feel like I want to take this time that we have as a reflection on other episodes to clarify what I meant. And it's definitely not a universal experience, but I feel like a lot of people can relate to the fear that parents put into you about how dangerous life is. You know, I think it emulates the theme of the ending of Haunting of Hill House, where the dad says that I was so busy holding the door from all these monsters that I forgot to hold my children, you know? And I think that that really has a relatability to me and how I grew up. And not to say that parenthood or families are a cult, but not to say that they're not, you know? I feel very, I wouldn't say maliciously manipulated, but manipulated nonetheless by your parents, you know? The easiest way to say this is, you know, fearing the world and how evil the world is and how you always got to rise above and everything like that, especially like in a Christian sense. You know, you got to be steadfast, you know, you got to turn the other cheek. You're like the good and the world is the bad type thing. And I felt like that was what I was trying to say with the connection to parentage and the fact that Maria does kind of do a little bit of that stuff to her children as well, or I would even say a little bit, a lot. But she has the wolf, and like the wolf is either a cult or it could even be her insecurities, her parents influencing her. Like there's a lot of layers to it that you could dissect and put put a lot of connections to. But I think the fact is that like there's a little bit of brainwashing from the wolf to Maria, and Maria does it to her children. And I think that that is always going to be a problem with parents. I don't think that whenever I become a parent, just because I've watched this film, I'm going to be like non-manipulative to my children. I'm sure I'm going to put ideas in their head that are fundamental to me, but might not be fundamental to them as well, you know? And so that was, I guess, a quick explanation of what I was trying to get towards in our episode. But yeah, I if you had any thoughts on that, or if you had any episode where maybe you felt like was a little bit subpar to what you're trying to get to, that was mine. So
Well, I mean, I don't have too much to add with that because I think I see a lot of what you're saying. I do want to mention, like, I think as far as our production value for the show is gone, that one is by far the worst. I shot it on my phone. The microphones didn't work. You know, the camera quality, it had some of the table in it, and I mean, I know right now, like, we don't even have the camera working at all. Like, it's still audio only. But I think we've done a good job of progressing as far as the production of the show goes, and so I'm proud of that. But I do want to mention that, yeah, the Wolf House is the worst one as far as production goes.
Objectively, yeah. What about personally? Do you feel like there's maybe just...
Personally, I got a little bit high before the Sophia in London one, and I found it hard to talk. So
it's our hit or miss sometimes, you know. I feel like the Batman is probably one of our best episodes because we're a little inebriated, but you know, it can be a detriment in other episodes.
Yeah, I've done a little bit of work. I try to be sober now because I can't handle it as well as you can. I think being able to talk when I'm either, you know, inebriated on some sort of substance. And it kind of frustrates me when I can't say what I want to say, especially when we're making a show about we're talking. Like, that's kind of the whole point.
Podcast?
Yeah, you know, it's a podcast, so I feel like I need to be able to communicate my thoughts in a way that I'm proud of. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I feel like it's not total linear growth, but I feel like with its ups and downs, I've gotten better along the way. So okay. I don't think of a personal episode that I thought was the worst on the top of my head, but I'm happy with the direction we're going. And speaking of that, this is the end of season 2. We're gonna take a bit of a break after this. We're gonna be back in about 3 weeks, but between then we're going to have bonus episodes. We're going to have reviews out, but we're going to take some time for creating season 3, and we want to put out a better product in our next wave of films. Yeah. And I just want to say, you know, thank you if you have been watching this far. It's not a gimme that anyone's getting this far, but I appreciate even the small group of people that have come to support us in this amount of time that we've been doing this, and I'm excited for what's to come in the future.
Yeah, I think that it's best said by describing the jokiness that we talk about the ending of an episode before, where we're like, nobody's here, we can say whatever we want, and now it's like, okay, probably nobody's here, but like, maybe.
It's possible. We have some amount of subscribers, even if it's only from one video.
Yeah, like 3 or 4, that's a lot, man. But even our watch
like
times,
18.
You know? Oh, really? Okay,
yeah, we've done a massive double in subscribers, a whole 18. Yeah, but yeah. I'm excited about that. Maybe by the end of next season, we can say without a shadow of a doubt that one person will have seen the whole thing.
That would be awesome.
That would be crazy.
But yeah, I think the bonus episodes will hold you guys over. I think you generally like to watch like 20 or 30 minute videos anyway, so I don't think it's missing too much. But I think a backlog will also help us a lot because we do kind of scramble a little bit. So I think that'll be great. And look forward to our announcements on the movies we've chosen for this next season, because we decided, or Joey told me to, because he's smart, that having a list is probably better, so you guys aren't blindsided by what we're watching when we upload.
Yeah, we want you guys to watch the films with us and kind of create like a little movie club kind of atmosphere.
So we'll definitely have a list of the next 10 episodes of season 3, and hopefully we also will try to describe a little bit about the movie more in the beginning. So that's obviously more on me, I think, because I kind of like to jump right into the conversation. But yeah, I think it'll be great to have a list for you guys to follow along, and maybe we can get some more comments on what you guys thought of as well.
Yeah, and on that note, subscribe, like, ring the bell, whatever. I don't even know what that means fully.
Yeah,
I'm just kidding.
I don't have any notifications for any of my subscribers.
Have some idea what it means, but anyway,
that's all.
Whatever. Love us, please.
Yes. All right, bye.